Revealed, the unexpected buyer of my late husband's watch changed our lives forever. Sarah could hardly breathe as she stood there, her fingertips tracing the cold metal of Brian's cherished watch. It was a tangible reminder of love lost and dreams shattered. The once vibrant laughter they shared seemed like echoes fading in the wind, replaced now by shadows of grief and the daunting weight of bills piling up. Brian, a beloved veteran, had dedicated his life to serving their country, but it felt like his absence had left a void that threatened to consume her. With her heart pounding, Sarah wrestled with the emotions swirling inside her. Selling the watch felt like tearing a piece of her heart away. Each tick of its hands reminded her of late-night talks, enduring promises, and their family's dreams. Now, at 34 and a single mother of two, how was she supposed to navigate a world that felt so empty? The weight of anxiety loomed over her, whispering that tough decisions were necessary. It was a crisp autumn day when she finally stepped into the quaint local antique shop, the little bell above the door tinkling like a hesitant prayer. The shop smelled of old wood and history. Her gaze fell on James, the shop owner, whose warm demeanor contrasted sharply with the sadness she felt. As he approached her with a knowing smile, Sarah felt a flicker of unexpected comfort. He unveiled his connection to Brian, and each word seemed to wrap around her heart like a warm embrace. "He was a true hero," James said softly, his piercing gaze locking onto hers. They spoke of Brian's quiet bravery, igniting Sarah's emotions like a flame rekindled. Memories washed over her, and for a moment, the world outside faded away. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As Sarah regained her focus, she was faced with a decision that felt monumental. Was she ready to part with a piece of Brian, sharing it with the world? This watch was tied to everything they built together, yet there was a stirring inside her. The thought of James displaying it as a tribute brought new life to the memories. Could honoring Brian's legacy be more than just holding on to physical possessions? However, the unease settled heavily in her stomach as she prepared to speak at a community gathering meant to honor veterans. Standing before her neighbors, she felt vulnerable, anxieties clawing at her. Would they see her as just a struggling mother, or would they understand the depths of her sacrifice too? Just when she thought she might find her voice, the crowd parted, and a familiar face emerged, someone who promised to be there but vanished when times got tough. Uncertainty gripped her heart. Would this unexpected reunion threaten the fragile new path she was forging, or could it somehow reveal the deeper connections that bind them all together? Sarah, the voice, was a mix of surprise and something more. She turned to see Jack, an old friend from high school. His dark hair had become speckled with gray, and lines etched his face that hadn't been there before. Yet the familiar warmth in his hazel eyes was unmistakable. An unexpected flurry of emotions washed over her: nostalgia, confusion, and a dash of anger. What was he doing here now? After all this time? In that moment of uncertainty, he stepped closer, concern rippling through his features. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Neither did I." Her voice was steady, but inside, it felt like a storm was brewing. How could he show up now, wanting to slip back into the fabric of her life as if nothing had changed? She forced herself to remember why she was there. This gathering was for veterans. It was for honoring Brian, for finding closure. But part of her felt the familiar pang of betrayal, as if Jack's presence threatened to unearth every emotion she had buried far too deeply. "I'm really sorry for your loss, Sarah," he began, his voice softer now, tinged with sincerity. "Brian was a great man. I didn't know until recently. I should have reached out sooner." Her heart felt heavy, each word hitting her like a wave crashing on the shore. She needed to focus on Brian, not on the ghosts of the past. "What do you want, Jack?" The words slipped out before she could filter them, sharp like a knife. I just wanted to see how you were doing. How the kids are. He glanced around, searching her face as if hoping to find the answers to questions he never got to ask. They're okay, doing their best. The mention of her children dulled the edge of her irritation. Brian's absence made her heart ache, but her focus had to be on raising them. It was all that mattered now. I miss those times, Jack said, shaking his head as though reeling in memories. We had a good friendship. She narrowed her eyes. Did we? You disappeared when it mattered most. Jack looked pained, and for a fleeting moment, she felt a flicker of empathy stir within her. But she quickly crushed it. This was not the time. I get that. I was young and foolish, but I've changed. I want to help if you'll let me. His voice trembled a bit. There was a desperation that tugged at her heartstrings. Maybe he had changed, but could she risk believing that? She stared at him, grappling with her feisty resolve and the flicker of hope nagging at her conscience. Could she take a chance after everything? Just as the tension thickened, the gathering's leader stepped to the center, and a hush fell over the crowd. I'd like to invite anyone who wants to share a memory of a loved one to do so. As her breath caught in her throat, Sarah's pulse quickened. Would she honor Brian, or would she let her emotions swallow her whole in this moment? But behind her, she heard Jack draw in a sharp breath, as if sensing her turmoil. Would he stand by her side as she spoke? Or would this be the moment that changed everything between them? Her heart raced as she took a step forward, ready to face the crowd, but her thoughts kept returning to Jack. What was he really here for? And would revealing the truth of Brian's legacy lead her closer to healing or deeper into confusion? As Sarah stood at the edge of the crowd, the spotlight of attention falling on her, her mind whirled in a cacophony of thoughts. Memories of Brian collided with realities of her current grief. She could almost hear his laughter, remember how he'd smile, that goofy, toothy grin, always ready to lift her spirits. But now, that warmth was overshadowed by the silence of loss. Share a memory, the leader urged again, a gentle voice coaxing her out of her fog. Sarah felt like she was teetering on the edge of a cliff, ready to jump whether into the depths of sorrow or the unknown depth of connections lost to time. With a trembling breath, she stepped further into the circle, feeling Jack's eyes on her, an anchor amidst a sea of emotions. Brian, she began, her voice shaky but pushing through. He was my husband, my best friend. He always knew how to make a room brighter. Images flooded her mind, the family dinners, the holidays, their children's laughter reverberating through the house. Tears pooled in her eyes, but she brushed them away fiercely. When he left for deployment, I never imagined, her voice cracked, and she inhaled deeply. I never imagined we'd never see him again. A collective breath came from the gathering. People's heads nodded understandingly, and she felt their support ripple around her, a protective barrier. And he loved his watch, she continued, the sharpness of loss making the words heavy. It was a silly little thing, a gift from our first anniversary. He wore it every day, said it reminded him of home, of me. Her hands found themselves gripping the fabric of her dress, grounding her. I held on to that watch after he died like a piece of him still lived in it. We used to joke about how clearly it ticked away the time, marking moments as if they'd never end. The reminiscing stirred courage within her, and she pressed on. But what was I supposed to do with it now? It felt too heavy, like I was carrying the weight of his memory. I thought I might sell it, part with it to let a little bit of closure in. That's when I met the buyer. At that moment, she caught Jack's gaze again, his expression shifting to one of curiosity and concern. Suddenly, sharing this felt far more revealing than she had anticipated. He was an older gentleman, with a kind smile and a soft voice. He took my hand and said, "This watch holds more than just time. It carries the bond of love, sacrifice, and memories that will echo forever." The potency of her words, the gravity of the moment, settled deep in her chest. At first, it was just about getting rid of something that hurt to see every day. But as we sat and talked, he shared stories of his own lost loved ones, the ones he wished he could hold just one more time. Sarah felt the tears she had fought against begin to fall. It made me realize that letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means honoring what was while allowing space for healing. She paused, letting the emotion wash over her like a wave. The crowd remained silent, captivated. Jack stood there, visibly moved, as if she'd peeled back layers he'd never seen. I didn't recognize that until I spoke with him, she concluded, her heart racing with the revelation that had become so clear in the sharing. He changed my understanding of love and loss through a simple exchange. A moment later, the applause began softly, then swelled, enveloping her in warmth. The energy in the room was alive, like they were all feeling the healing together, as one, and in that moment, Sarah felt lighter, as if a weight had shifted. But, as she turned to face Jack, she felt another layer of confusion, the spark in his eyes, the unspoken words dangling between them like a thread, ready for pulling. "What are you thinking?" she asked, her heart thudding as she met his gaze. Jack stepped closer, taking a breath like he was preparing to confess something monumental. "I think I need to tell you something about Brian's last days." Suddenly, all the warmth from her speech receded, replaced by a chill of dread. What could he possibly mean? As uncertainty hung in the air, she held her breath, fearing the answer that could unravel everything once more. Jack's eyes darkened, the weight of his words palpable. "Before he shipped out, he confided in me," he started, his voice low, almost hesitant. Each word hung between them like mist, both enveloping and suffocating. "He had fears. Not just the fears of war, but fears about leaving you and the kids behind." Sarah's heart began to race. Memories flooded back in a rapid succession. Brian's little worries, the way he'd fidget with that watch as they'd lay in bed, discussing dreams and uncertainties in the dark. "What do you mean?" she whispered, barely able to process the implications. Jack took another step closer, his eyes searching hers, allowing their unspoken emotions to intermingle. "He mentioned wanting to be brave, not just for the mission, but brave for you. He told me about his worries for your future," Jack continued, each syllable laced with something deeper. "There were moments of doubt. He wanted to ensure you'd be taken care of, loved, even if he wasn't." There a whirlwind of emotions swirled in Sarah's chest: confusion, heartbreak, but also an odd sense of understanding. But he was going to come back. We had plans. Her words trailed off, the memories felt ambiguous, tangled in what-ifs and agonizing possibilities. "He didn't want to leave you alone if the worst happened," Jack pressed on, his voice stronger now. "He wasn't just close with you. He was worried about how it would affect everyone. Every deployment, he thought about it." He hesitated, then added softly, "We talked about you, about the kids. He loved you more than anything, Sarah. That was his truth." Tears cascaded down her cheeks as grief intertwined with a bittersweet realization. Brian had always been her steadfast rock, but did he truly believe that he would never return? What else did he say? Her voice cracked. The thought of Brian holding those fears alone was almost unbearable. Jack's gaze softened. "He wanted you to find happiness. He asked me to keep an eye on you while he was away. He wanted me to be there in the shadows, to ensure you weren't alone." In case his words weighed heavy, every syllable felt like a stone dropping into the pool of her heart. Sarah felt lost in the swell of emotions, the gravity of Brian's intentions shifting her perspective on grief. "But I thought—" "I know," Jack interrupted gently. "He thought it too. But the unexpected can happen in a heartbeat. He made me promise to look out for you both." The room around them had faded into a blur. All she could focus on were Jack's steady eyes, the warmth radiating from his presence, anchoring her in this storm of memories and truths, the love that never faded, even in loss. "But why didn't you tell me this earlier?" she murmured, battling the swirl of raw feelings. Jack hesitated. "I couldn't. I didn't know how. It felt like a burden I was carrying for him. But when you spoke today, I saw something shift in you, a moment of light breaking through the pain." As she met his gaze, the shared history of loss, love, and unspoken promises wrapped around them tightly. Sarah felt raw and exposed but strangely understood. "I thought I was alone in this." "You never were," Jack replied, his voice steady, firm against the tremor of her grief. She shifted her weight, her heart pounding with every unvoiced question. Jack's presence filled the emptiness inside her, even while Brian's memory filled the spaces of their conversation. She searched his eyes, looking for meaning, seeking comfort in what she did and didn't he know. "Jack," she started, sensing the challenge of what lay ahead, "if Brian wanted me to find happiness, what does that mean for us? For you and me?" He opened his mouth to respond, the air seeming to crackle with unspoken possibilities. But before he could answer, a loud crash from the back of the room interrupted. Whispers filled the air as heads turned. The moment, so charged with potential, hung in the balance. "What was that?" Sarah asked, confusion blending with an unsettling sense of urgency. Jack shot a glance over his shoulder, his brows furrowing. "I don't know. But it doesn't feel good." The crowd buzzed with tension, and Sarah's mind raced what disruption lurked just outside the ripple of their revelations. The silence between them expanded, fraught with unanswered questions as apprehension stole the warmth from their moment. Could the unexpected truth lead to a new beginning, or would this turmoil tear them apart once more? The room erupted in chaos, the sound slicing through the heavy air. Sarah stumbled back, her heart racing as a figure emerged from the shadows, the ominous presence sending a chill through the crowd. The laughter and cheers from moments ago evaporated into surprised murmurs, replaced by a sense of foreboding. "Who is that?" Sarah asked, her voice barely audible. Jack's body stiffened, his protective instincts kicking in. "Stay close," he urged, each word measured as he stepped in front of her, shielding her from whatever threat loomed. The figure was tall and imposing, with a face shrouded in darkness beneath the brim of a worn baseball cap. As the crowd parted like waves, Sarah's breath quickened. Something about this person felt unsettlingly familiar, yet she couldn't place it. "Just a misunderstanding?" the stranger called out, raising crooked hands in an exaggerated gesture meant to calm the escalating tension. The voice sounded gravelly, laden with an urgency that hinted at deeper struggles. Jack remained rigid beside her, a protective barrier. He narrowed his eyes, attempting to assess the threat. "We should probably call someone," he said, barely above a whisper, but before Sarah could react, the figure stepped forward again, stumbling closer now, the shadows creeping away as he was finally illuminated under the overhead lights. "Sarah!" he exclaimed, a mixture of desperation and familiarity bound in his tone. "I need to talk to you." Her heart sank. It was Mark, an old friend of Brian's, someone she hadn't seen in years. The last she remembered, he had been down on his luck, struggling with demons that overshadowed his best intentions. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice tinged with disbelief and cautious concern. "I had to come. I found something that belongs to you," he continued, his wide eyes a whirlwind of emotion. "Something Brian wanted you to have. It's about the watch." Jack took a half step forward, his eyes now narrowed, filled with suspicion. "What do you mean?" Mark glanced at Jack, recognizing the tension. "Just hear me out," he pleaded, his voice steady but shaky. "I stumbled upon his old things at a pawn shop, things he left behind. I swear, I didn't intend to keep them, but when I saw the watch," he paused, swallowing hard. "I knew I had to find you." Sarah felt the air catch in her lungs. The thought of Brian's watch brought a flood of memories. It was the same one he'd used to mark their special moments, their anniversary, their children's births. "What did you learn?" she prompted, heart pounding at the significance of what he might reveal. Mark hesitated again, glancing at the gathered crowd and then back to Sarah. "He changed the engraving. It said, 'Always in you,' like he knew something was coming. Sarah, I need you to understand. He wanted you to have this. To know he cared." A chill crawled up her spine, the weight of words stretching beyond mere sentiment. Why would he change it? She whispered, hoping for some clarity in the fog of confusion surrounding her. Because he was worried about leaving you. Mark's voice cracked, as if he felt the gravity of those words deeply. He wanted you to find your way. To know that no matter what happened, he'd always be with you. Jack's expression shifted slightly, uncertainty clouding his protective stoicism. The tension in Sarah's chest began to unravel, replaced by a glimmer of something new, hope, perhaps? Could she really honor Brian's wishes while paving a new path with Jack, who had unexpectedly stood with her during this turmoil, yet the shadows cast by Mark's revelation lingered like an afterthought. What are you really saying? Sarah pressed, needing the truth to unfurl like a flag unfurling in a gentle breeze. Mark took a deep breath, the moment thick with urgency. There's more. There are things you don't know, connections that run deeper than you think. The depths of his words hung heavily in the air, like a stone dropped into a still pond, sending ripples outward. If Brian had been weaving a truth through his fears, where would it lead Sarah now? Before she could respond, Jack stiffened again, his gaze piercing through Mark. You need to explain. Now. Could she truly unearth the layers of Brian's secrets while wrestling with her own heart from the direct past to the unknown future? Would following this thread lead to clarity, or would it complicate everything more? A decision loomed on the horizon, urgent and demanding, and Sarah had to decide how much she was willing to lose, or gain, in the quest for truth. The air was thick with expectancy, the crowd silent as they absorbed the intensity of the moment. Sarah felt her throat tighten, eyes locked on Mark, who stood trembling with a mixture of dread and urgency. What do you mean, connections? She asked, her voice steadier than the storm brewing inside her. Mark looked down, his features clouded. I couldn't understand it at first, but when I found the watch, everything began to come together. Brian was involved in something deeper than we knew. There were names, people. You need to know he wasn't who you thought he was. Sarah's heart raced. She reached out, grasping Jack's arm for support. What are you saying? Brian was trying to protect you. I've seen things, heard things. That Mark's voice trembled, the words threatening to escape his lips like a flood. He owed money. Bad people were involved, and he changed the engraving as a kind of farewell, as if he was saying goodbye in a way that would leave you with hope. A buzz of murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sarah felt the floor beneath her feet shift, the ground growing unstable as the reality of Mark's words crashed into her. No, she whispered, shaking her head in disbelief. He wouldn't do that. Brian was trying to build a future. Sometimes, the weight of caring for the ones you love means taking on more than you can handle, Mark insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. He thought if he hid it from you, it would save you pain. But you deserve to know. Jack's grip tightened on her arm, his gaze a searing mix of anger and concern. Is this true? Were you part of that? He demanded, eyeing Mark with a fierceness that demanded an answer. I didn't know until it was too late. Mark retorted, spilling the truth like a secret he could no longer keep. I had my demons, too. I woke up one day and realized how many people were waiting for Brian to pay. I came here to warn you all, to try and keep you safe. The room pulsed with a charged energy, and Sarah felt suddenly unmoored. Each word from Mark unraveled the world she thought she knew. You mean he was in danger? Why didn't he tell me? She felt tears prick her eyes, a tumult of sorrow and betrayal swirling inside her. I think he thought he could find a way out. He wanted to shield you from his mistakes, Mark replied, his voice hardly above a whisper now, like a confession. He always cared too much for you. Jack took Sarah's hand, his thumb brushing against her palm, grounding her in the chaos. But maybe there's still a way to fix this, he spoke, his firm tone igniting a flicker of hope in her. We can figure it out together. Together? Mark echoed, the weight of his secrets now suspended between them. There's more I need to tell you. Things could get worse. As the crowd adjusted to the revelations, faces drawn with worry, Sarah wrestled with the implications. It felt like the walls were closing in, each breath heavier than the last. Worse? She asked, dread creeping in on her like a thief in the night. Yeah, Mark admitted, his eyes darting through the crowd, as if expecting someone to emerge from the shadows again. There are still people looking for him, for what he owed. And if they think you know something, tension escalated, each moment stretching longer. A sense of urgency filled her veins, driving home the reality of her situation. We have to confront this, face it head on, Sarah said, her voice gaining strength, clenching Jack's hand tightly. I 1T run from Brian's past. Jack's firm nod reassured her, a silent promise in their bond. I'll do whatever it takes to protect you, he whispered. The air hummed, electric with potential, fraught with uncertainty, yet blooming with a new sense of direction. Sarah could feel the edges of her world transforming into something riskier, yet undeniably real. But as Mark opened his mouth to reveal more, the door swung wide, a loud crack echoing, startling everyone. The figure standing there looked eerily familiar, silhouetted against the soft glow of the outside lights. Where's Brian? They asked, voice icy and unmistakably. Threatening the moment hung precariously, Sarah's heart plummeting with an instinctual fear. The realization hit, this was just the beginning. Who stood before them now, and what would unravel next? The figure stepped further into the room, a shadow merging with the uneasy light. Sarah squinted, trying to decipher the face that was both familiar and foreign, her heart thumping loudly in her chest. It was almost as if time had twisted. Eva? Mark's voice was barely above a whisper, filled with disbelief that mirrored Sarah's own. Sarah's breath caught. Eva was Brian's old partner from his early days in the business, the one who had vanished suddenly without a trace. Her presence here sent a wave of confusion rippling through Sarah. Why now? Why here? What do you want? Jack's voice cut through the tension, his body tense and protective beside her. Eva's expression was hard to read, a mix of determination and something darker. I heard you were looking for answers, she replied, her tone casual, yet the air crackled with an unspoken threat. Answers? Sarah echoed, feeling the need to reclaim her power in the moment. You think you can just waltz in here and act like you still have a stake in this? I didn't come to argue, Eva shot back, a flash of anger igniting in her eyes. I came to help you, Sarah. You deserve the truth. The truth? Is that why you disappeared? You left Brian hanging, Mark snapped, stepping forward, fists clenched at his sides. Eva shrugged, a hint of regret softening her hardened facade. I did what I had to. Some truths are buried for a reason. But they're coming back to haunt us now. Sarah stood frozen, feeling the weight of each revelation pressing down on her. She wanted to demand answers, to shake them out of Eva like loose coins from a pocket. But fear coiled inside her, an eerie awareness of just how deep the web of lies spun by Brian's life had become. Explain yourself, she finally managed to say, her voice a mix of command and desperation. I never wanted to hurt Brian, Eva began, her voice steady but cautious. The people he got involved with were dangerous, and I was trying to keep my distance. But with the debts piling up, he couldn't walk away. I thought he had a plan, I thought he could handle it. Handle what? Jack demanded, his eyes narrowing as he assessed the threat. The money he owed was only part of it. He was part of something bigger, something dangerous, Eva admitted, her voice lowering in urgency. And they're not just going to forget about him. They know he has ties to you. To both of you. If they think he is hiding, they'll come for you, too. Tension mounted like a crescendo, the crowd behind them an audience to the unfolding drama. Each revelation felt like a brick added to the wall closing in around Sarah. Her stomach churned with fear, mixing with anger at Brian's choices, at Eva's secrets. Then we need to find him, Sarah asserted, not just to the room, but to herself. I refuse to let his life be consumed by this. We can't run. We have to face it. Whatever it takes. Sarah Jack began, concern etched across his features. No. She interrupted, fire igniting within her words. I won't be a victim of Brian's mistakes anymore. I'll fight for him. For us. I'm done being afraid. An unexpected energy surged through the group, murmurs rising about her bold assertion. Seeing the spark of determination in her eyes was contagious, and even Mark's frustration began to shift into cautious hope. Maybe you're right, he conceded, glancing between them. But we need to act fast. Time is running out. Then let us start, Sarah said, her voice steadier now. She could feel the adrenaline pumping through her veins. She was ready to face the darkness of Brian's world head-on. But just as she steeled herself, the lights flickered ominously, plunging the room into momentary darkness. A collective gasp filled the space, an uneasy silence settling in. Stay close, Jack whispered protectively, even as shadows danced along the walls. With her heart racing, Sarah glanced at Eva, desperately searching for answers in her eyes. She felt the dread creeping back, knowing the worst was far from over. What awaited them in the shadows? Who would emerge next, and what would they bring into the fragile circle of trust they were trying to build? The darkness swallowed the light for a heartbeat, each second stretching painfully as the room pulsed with uncertainty. Sarah's heart thudded like a drum, echoing her mounting fear. She focused on the soft swish of Jack's coat as he shifted closer, a protective wall she desperately needed. Eva stood still, her face a mask of defiance mixed with anxiety. They're watching us, she whispered, her voice low but urgent. Just then, the lights flickered back on, illuminating the group's faces strained with tension. The murmurs of the crowd quieted, their curiosity hushing as the atmosphere shifted. Who's watching? Mark asked, his voice carrying a hint of fear. The people I tried to warn Brian about, Eva replied, her normally resolute facade cracking slightly. They have eyes everywhere. Before anyone could respond, the distant rumble of thunder reverberated outside, blending with the commotion in the room. It reminded Sarah of how fragile their situation really was. They were all at the mercy of forces they didn't fully understand. Let us not dwell in darkness then, Sarah asserted. If they're out there, we need to move, figure out a plan. She was surprised at her own strength urging her forward. Jack nodded, admiration flashing in his eyes. We gather what we know, then. Start piecing it together. Together, Mark added, his mood shifting from frustration to mutual determination, but just as they were gaining momentum, a shrill ringing shattered the air. A phone, vibrating aggressively against the table, drew every eye toward it. Who could that be? Jack asked, hesitating. Eva picked it up, glancing at the screen. It's an unknown number. Don't answer it, Mark warned, his brows furrowed. Or maybe we should, Sarah interjected, rising to the challenge. It could be Brian or someone who knows where he is. Taking a deep breath, Eva tapped the screen, answering with a steady voice. Hello? A moment of silence followed, and Sarah's stomach nodded at the hidden conversation on the other end. Eva's face paled, the color draining like coal from a furnace. Fear washed over Sarah, an almost tangible force as she strained to catch Eva's words. Yes, I understand, she paused, her eyes darting as she listened intently. What are they saying? Sarah pressed, a chill creeping up her spine. Eva ended the call abruptly, her eyes wide with terror. They want Brian. They said if we don't deliver him, there will be consequences. The air thickened with unspoken dread. A fragile silence hung between them, hearts racing with the implications of what Eva had just shared. So, what now? Mark asked quietly, the bravado fading from his earlier stance. I'll go, Sarah said firmly, surprising them all. I'll find Brian. He's scared and I'm not going to let him face this alone. Not anymore. Jack stepped closer, gripping her arm. Sarah, it's too dangerous. We can come up with another plan. No. She snapped back, the the fire in her eyes alight. If I don't take this chance, we might lose him or worse, lose each other in this mess. Mark opened his mouth to object, but no words came. All he could do was gaze at her, unsure yet undeniably impressed by her raw courage. The shadows seemed to deepen around them, the atmosphere thickening with anticipation of the path they were about to embark upon. "Then I'm coming with you," Jack declared, a hint of defiance edging his tone. "No," Sarah replied firmly, shaking her head. "I can't put you in danger. If it's just me, maybe we'll have a chance to sneak in and out without drawing attention." A sudden crash outside echoed, causing the group to jump. As they exchanged worried glances, it felt like the world was closing in, their safety slipping through their fingers like sand. "What if you don't come back?" Mark pressed, his voice heavy with emotion. "Then I'll have given everything for him and for you guys," she answered softly, resolve reverberating through her words. They stood there, surrounded by uncertainty, each heart pounding in rhythm, then they nodded collectively, understanding the truth of her sacrifice. As Sarah moved towards the exit, an unshakable sense of purpose coursed through her veins. But just before she stepped outside, she turned back. "Keep your phones close. If anything happens, if you hear something, call me. I can't face this fight alone." What lay ahead was a labyrinth of shadows and fears, and even in that moment, Sarah's instinct told her they hadn't seen the worst of it yet. The darkness was only just beginning to reveal its true nature. Would she find Brian in time, or would the secrets of the past consume her whole? The air outside felt heavy, charged with electricity, as Sarah stepped into the night. She could feel the prickling of her skin, as if the universe itself were holding its breath. Each footfall echoed in her ears, the weight of her mission pressing down like a lead blanket. Jack's eyes lingered on her, filled with concern, but he respected her choice. His support was tangible, even from afar. The streetlights cast a flickering glow over the pavement, shadows dancing in the corners where secrets seemed to hide. Sarah hugged herself tighter, not from the cold, but from the chill of fear creeping into her heart. She had to be brave, for Brian, for herself, and for Jack, who had trusted her judgment even when it seemed reckless. She glanced at her phone, its brightness cutting through the darkness, a reminder of her makeshift lifeline. "I'll be okay," she whispered to herself, the words barely escaping her lips. Navigating through the alleys she knew too well from years of growing up in this neighborhood, Sarah felt the stirrings of memories playing, laughing, and chasing shadows that now seemed more sinister. She pushed the nostalgia down. This wasn't a time for wistfulness, this was a mission. She reached the abandoned warehouse, a place of whispered rumors and hidden truths. Her heart raced. This was where the call had pointed her. They needed to draw her out. She could feel it in her bones. Approaching the large, rusted door, a sense of foreboding washed over her, but she couldn't turn back now. "Brian," she murmured, willing him to be okay. The door creaked as she slowly pushed it open, the darkness inside stretching, enveloping her like a thick fog. Inside, the space felt surreal and haunting. Empty crates lined the walls, dust hung in the air like a specter. She took a breath, steadying herself as she scanned the area. Nothing appeared out of place, yet the stillness screamed danger. Then she heard it, a muffled sound echoing from the back. Her heart raced as she hurried toward it, each step fueled by fear and determination. The sound grew clearer, a mix of whimpers and something heavier, like a desperate plea. "Brian!" she called out, her voice reverberating in the hollow space. She rushed past the crates, her heart pounding against her chest. The knot of fear twisted tighter with every step, but there was no turning back. She reached a dimly lit room in the back, the source of the noise clearer now. Her breath caught as she saw him, Brian, tied to a chair, a bruised face that reflected confusion and fear. Relief surged through her like a lifeboat crashing through stormy seas, but it was short-lived. "Sarah!" he gasped, eyes wide. "You shouldn't have come." Before he could finish, the clattering of footsteps echoed ominously from the entrance. Panic surged within her. Voices were approaching, menacing and low. She looked around for something, anything that could provide cover. "Stay quiet," she hissed, ducking behind a stack of crates, adrenaline racing through her veins. They were here. This was the moment she had feared but had prepared for. She had to get him out, the door burst open, and two figures stepped inside, their silhouettes stark against the faint light. Sarah watched with bated breath, her heart in her throat. The men were here for Brian, and they were not looking for a friendly chat. Suddenly, a loud shout broke through the air. "Where is he?" one demanded, desperation lacing his tone. Sarah's heart stopped. The urgency in his voice was palpable. As they searched the room, her mind raced. If they found Brian, all hope would be lost. Would they hurt him? Hurt her? She couldn't let that happen. Not now, not ever. In that breathless second, she made a decision. She wouldn't just hide, she would act. And just as she steadied herself, a plan forming in her mind, the unexpected happened. Jack's voice cut through the noise, emerging from the shadows. "Over here." Sarah's heart slammed in her chest. What the hell was he doing here? Hadn't she told him to stay behind? As the men turned toward Jack's shout, Sarah seized the moment. Her instincts driving her. Now or never. With a burst of energy, she dashed from her hiding spot, desperation fueling her. But as she reached for Brian, one of the men turned, eyes narrowing, ready to strike. What would happen next could change everything. With a jolt of adrenaline coursing through her, Sarah lunged toward Brian. The moment felt suspended in time, her heart racing, her breath quickening as she reached for him. But the men were quicker. One whipped around just in time, a look of shock turning into fierce determination. "What the?" he gasped before Jack sprang into action. "Get away from her!" Jack shouted, stepping between Sarah and danger, fists clenched and ready. The energy shifted, it was now a dance of desperation and courage. "Drop him!" the second man barked, eyes glinting with menace. Sarah could see the weight of urgency pressing down on Jack, but also a glimmer of resolve. "Let us get out of here," Jack urged, his voice low and intense. "Wait," Sarah cried, wanting to reason, but time was slipping. She pressed her frame against Brian's, determination hardening. "We need to leave now." Brian's eyes, full of pain and fear, met hers. "Sarah, you shouldn't have come," he murmured, panic rising in his tone. "No," she replied fiercely, wiping the fear from her expression. "I'm not leaving without you. Not now." The tension escalated as the men advanced, but Jack stepped forward, confronting the nearest one. "You don't want to do this," he shouted, his voice heavy with authority. "You don't know who you're messing with." One man hesitated, scanning Jack's steady gaze as if weighing his options. "You're dead if you don't stand down," he snarled. "Let us not make this worse than it already is." Jack kept his stance strong, eyes narrowed in challenge. The room tensed, caught in negotiation and disbelief. In that split second, Sarah realized the urgency wasn't just survival, it was choice. Jack's bravery and her own commitment to Brian anchored her, guiding her movements as she shifted slightly behind Jack. "We have to make a break for it," she said, voice trembling but resolute. Just then, a commotion erupted outside, the sound of sirens blaring. Rescue was near. The men exchanged frantic looks. "They're coming," one said, panic erupting in his voice. "We need to go now." "Not without him," Sarah shouted. The walls echoed with desperation, her heart pounding in her chest. "Grab him," Jack commanded, making a move toward Brian. "I've got your back." With fierce instincts, Sarah dashed forward, heedless of her own safety as she untied Brian's wrists. The knots released with a gasp of relief, but awareness settled in time was indeed a fragile thread. "Come on," Sarah urged, taking Brian's hand and pulling him to his feet. His body felt weak and battered, but he was alive, her heart swelled with hope. In that pivotal moment, Jack swung to confront the men one last time. Get ready, he warned, tension vibrating in the air. You're outnumbered. As they exchanged heated glares, Sarah felt urgency mingling with her love, a bond that transcended the chaos. They had to escape, there was no turning back. The men shifted uneasily, realizing the balance of power was tipping. Go! Jack shouted, forcing the escape plan into motion. The trio pushed toward a side door, breaths ragged as they escaped the clutches of uncertainty, but as they flew into the alley, the realization hit Sarah like a wave. The bond between life and loss wasn't just about survival, it was about choice. A choice to fight for those they loved, for the life they yearned to reclaim. High on adrenaline, they fled down the dimly lit street. Jack kept close on their heels, adrenaline fueling every set of determined footsteps. The sirens grew louder as they neared an intersection. Freedom felt tangible, a promise carved from the darkness. Just when they turned the corner, the headlights of police cars flooded the alleyway, illuminating the pathway ahead. The unexpected saviors had arrived. Over here! Sarah shouted, waving her arms to catch the officer's attention. Relief flooded through her as sirens blared and honking followed. As the police rushed towards them, Jack, Brian, and Sarah stood together, breathless and wide-eyed. The weight of truth was heavy, but as they exchanged glances, something transformed within the space between them. Brian felt more than just relief. He felt the depths of love that they would fight, endure, and rise from the ashes together. A police officer approached them, authoritative yet concerned. Are you okay? What happened? We need to talk, Brian said, his voice trembling but anchored with a newfound strength. He looked at Sarah, then Jack, and saw the solidarity between them all. Together, Jack affirmed, linking their fingers with Sarah's. A sense of power surged through them, a shared understanding. No more hiding, no more running. Each step forward would be a choice they would face together, woven into a tapestry of love, loss, and the promise to rise. Sarah raised her chin defiantly. We will honor his memory, she promised, her voice steady. And face whatever comes next. The road ahead was uncertain, shadows still lurked, but the light had penetrated through. Together, they stepped into a new chapter, conquerors of mystery, bound by an unwavering resolve to embrace hope. The sirens sang like a triumphant chorus, a melody of redemption. Sarah, Brian, and Jack walked forward, ready for whatever was coming, united and powerful as one. So the shadows began to lift, marking the dawn of healing, a radiant testament to love that would carry them through the harshest of storms. Now, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories that will capture your heart like this one. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others find their way to these amazing tales. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Now's your chance to spread the inspiration that comes from facing challenges head-on. What was your reaction to this emotional ending? Comment below with your feelings. Let us keep this community growing.